So welcome everyone, and we're now recording. So just very briefly, I'd like to introduce Constance, who is the founder of the Ghana Science and Tech Explorer Challenge Prize. Have I got that right? GSTEP? GSTEP? Yep. Brilliant.
GSTEP, yes.
Also, excellent. Co-founder of I've got Partnership Bureau, Innovating Collaboration, an associate director at Challenge Works, and a project lead at Engineers Without Borders UK. So very busy person, it sounds like. Constance, if you're happy, I'll hand over to you for the webinar, and if you want to also provide any extra introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. So before I start the presentation, I guess I should talk about some of these few hats by way of introduction. The webinar is going to be on Engineers Without Borders UK work specifically. But I'm a co-founder of Partnership Bureau, which is a Ghana-based organization looking at issues of power, equity, and access across different kind of programmatic lenses. So really looking at how power can be shared more equitably between donors and implementers, but also how collaborative practices can become more effective between implementers, looking at how programs can be more inclusive and equitable, and thinking about opportunity access. So how can organizations work more effectively together to access better opportunities and to drive more impact. So that's one of my hats. As founder of the GSTEP, the Ghana Science and Tech Explorer Prize, that's a program that focuses on working with junior high schools across Ghana. And we've been delivering that for the last 3 years and are now into our next 2 years of phase. So working with junior high school students in Ghana on STEM projects that address community issues. So really, it's a program that supports practical education, the use of STEM for real-world application, and supporting young people to kind of think critically and to have a problem-solving attitude, which are skills that the industry is saying is lacking in new recruits at the moment. So we're really trying to get children at an earlier age to do that. I was Director of International Development at the UK Innovation Foundation, Nesta, looking at challenge-driven innovation. So a range of my work is focused on driving innovation across a range of thematic areas, whether that be education, agriculture, inclusive technologies, and a whole range of other things. So a person with many hats, but to keep it really simple today, I'm going to talk about Engineers Without Borders UK. So let me just see if I can share my screen without too many issues. I think that is the right screen. Right, let me see if I can put it on presentation mode. Bear with me a second. Oh, that is in the way. Let's see if I can present. Right. Are you seeing that in full presentation mode now?
We
Wonderful.
are.
Okay, let's see if I can make this work. Okay, so really focused on the work with Engineers Without Borders UK because it feels the most relevant in terms of this forum. And Engineers Without Borders UK is an organisation that is really trying to put global responsibility at the heart of engineering. And engineering cuts across all our infrastructure and cities programmes. So this felt like an appropriate thing to talk about. And also we're in partnership with High Volume Transport Applied Research through Neil. And so thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about some of that work. So what I'm going to provide is a very quick overview of who are Engineers Without Borders UK, talk a little bit about our purpose, our programs, some of the tools we've developed, and then have a focus on a specific program called Reshaping Transport, which is a partnership with HVT. So in terms of who Engineers Without Borders UK are, we're actually part of a global movement of over 30 other Engineers Without Borders organizations across the globe. And really, it's a united belief in kind of being a catalyst for positive change within engineering. We really need and believe that engineers need to have a kind of balanced perspective of human needs and planetary needs, as well as technical needs, which is what engineers are generally trained in at the forefront. So this is really trying to ensure that there's a level of globally responsible practice within the field. Engineers Without Borders UK has just celebrated this year 2 decades of existence in various guises. And so it's an organization that is developing. It's still a very small organization, but has a global reach across this network and is really driving transformation in the engineering education and practice. And so that's the kind of key goal. So hopefully this video will play.
I don't think we're getting any sound.
Sorry, did you say there was no sound?
I'm not hearing any sound. Maybe the odd blip, but it feels it might
Oh,
just be a streaming problem. It might just be at my end. Maybe others are okay.
were others hearing it? I might not have done a particular
There's
setting that I needed to on Canva.
there's no sound, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. So what I will explain what Emma was saying, which was basically Engineers Without Borders UK was born out of a volunteer movement across universities, and that grew over the years. So it was really driven by the desire of students to really think about engineering as a global practice and really be principled about the way in which they were approaching their work. So that movement is still at the heart of Engineers Without Borders UK. And that has transpired now into a staffed organisation who are really driving work across universities and industry and across the network, driving the principles of global responsibility and practice. So the 4 key principles of global responsibility that we are trying to drive is to support engineers to be responsible, to really think about the needs of all people within the to be inclusive, to ensure that diverse viewpoints and knowledge are included in engineering design and processes, and regenerative, to ensure that we're actually looking after the environment and reducing harm and impact to the environment. So those are the principles that kind of drive our organizational purpose. So our goals are to inspire and really encourage that sense of global responsibility, to provide skill sets to equip engineering communities with the skills and expertise, so really drive practice, and to drive change, to really continue that movement of change within this setting. So the movement, the network is a really big piece of who we are as an organization. But we also recognize that doing things alone is not going to achieve the goals that we want to. So collaboration and partnership is key. We recognize that these challenges that we're facing across infrastructure, cities, transport, all of that are highly complex. And to develop just systems, we really need to strive for better, not perfect, because we know we're not going to achieve perfect, but we want to strive for better and aim for the best that we can, given the circumstances and the situations that we're in. And then the learning and acting on what we learn is a key thing. So a lot of what we do is about ensuring that, as well as the kind of theoretical base of knowledge, it's about acting, it's about practicing and demonstrating that learning and taking action. So I'll just speak a little bit about some of the programs that we run. So Engineering for People is a mainstay and is a flagship program for Engineers Without Borders UK. And this program brings real world design challenges and kind of explores those in a safe environment through project-based learning approaches. So what we'll do is we will actually work with the community to really understand the dynamics of what's going on with that community, what they're experiencing. It might be agricultural, it might be to do with the infrastructure of their place. It might be some other form of engineering challenge. And we work with educators to run the challenge. So this is very much embedding it as part of the curriculum for first and second year undergraduates. And it's becoming, for those that take part, a mandatory part of the degree course. So it's an important part of what they're achieving within the degree. So since its inception, that's reached over 87,000 students, 45 universities in 5 countries. So it's a global challenge. It's really reaching universities and having an impact on the learning of undergraduates. And the stat around 91% of participants have kind of expressed that they've broadened their understanding of globally responsible engineering. Efficiency for access is another design challenge that is more focused on accelerating clean energy access. So again, the principle is that students will actually take up the challenge in groups. They will focus on clean energy as the thematic area for this, and they will develop solutions. So they'll develop concepts and actually map out those processes and really develop those ideas, and in some cases lead them onto prototypes. So over the past 5 years, more than 500 students, again, a good range of universities, and this time across 17 countries. So a much more globally diverse reach for efficiency for access. And they have developed over 100 projects in that case. And this also includes, and actually most of our programs include, access to industry partners who mentor the students. They'll have webinars and other things, as well as developing that, and they'll have an opportunity to actually pitch their idea and their sessions. So it's really trying to give a holistic perspective of how you design in a globally responsible way, but also giving some of those really practical kind of pitching and skills development and masterclass sessions along with that. Systems Change Lab is a partnership with the Royal Academy of Engineering, and it's really about bringing change makers together to explore how global responsibility actually works in practice in engineering degrees. So really leveraging and drawing on all of their expertise to think about what are the practical things that need to happen. So with the Systems Change Lab, we kind of recognize that these are systemic approaches that we're taking, and therefore they need to involve the communities which need to embrace them and take them up. So these conversations, these practical explorations of the topics are really important. And so the couple of things that I thought it's useful to note is that at the start of these Systems Change Labs, a lot of the universities or institutions are saying that global responsibility is kind of an ad hoc or an add-on. It's more than that. It's not as integrated. And what they want to do is have a shift to full integration and really being built into the programs. And so that's the shift that we're trying to make with the programs that we're running and we're developing. This is what we have in mind, that this becomes a mainstay and an integrated aspect of every type of engineering degree, and we're talking across multiple disciplines here across the piece. Reshaping Engineering is a shorter burst design challenge, and it's more engineering agnostic, so again, multidiscipline. So students and professionals can apply to this, and they can bring solutions to any type of engineering challenge. And this is really targeted at those with or without engineering expertise. So we're really trying to ensure that there's a multifaceted, multidisciplined approach to this, with people that have more technical expertise in engineering and those that don't. And the mix of student professionals is something I'll talk about a little bit more for reshaping transport. That network and that dynamic sense of, looking at where you are as an early stage professional, what you're going to go into as a student, and being able to really cross-fertilize those ideas has been a real powerhouse for reshaping engineering, which has run for a number of years, and is also part of the template that we use for reshaping transport. So just a little bit about some of the tools that we have. So out of the Systems Change Lab, they felt that there was a need to really help educators and decision makers navigate the, how to make globally responsible engineering practical, relevant, and useful for them to, I suppose, argue the case for in their faculties. So this was a response to the Systems Change Lab. The Reimagined Degree Map was launched earlier this year, and it really is a step-by-step kind of guide to supporting professionals and accreditation bodies to reimagine how to empower decision makers to really take on global responsibility. So that's a key tool for us. The other is the Global Responsibility Competency Compass. That's a bit of a mouthful, the Competency Compass. And this is a really practical tool that has, it defines some essential competencies that are aligned with the 4 principles that I talked about earlier. And it helps individuals and teams to reflect on where their strengths are in that, where they need to develop better practice, and also supports them with how they can do that. So for this, it's a really practical exploration of answering a set of questions around your practice, your thought process, your design principles. And at the end of that, you get a readout of where your strengths are within the 4 global responsibility principles. And you get some guidance on how you might want to develop the areas that need further developing, or how you enhance the areas that you're even doing well at. So it's a really practical tool that helps with self-reflection, that helps teams to look at where their strengths lie collectively, and give some really practical advice about how you become a globally responsible practitioner. So the final bits that I want to talk about really is a focus on the project that we're doing with High Volume Transport Applied Research, DT Global, Neil's team, and really looking at what this project kind of brought to bear. So UNESCO also collaborated on this project as part of their 10th Africa Engineering Week, specifically around the design challenge, but there was a lot more to it than that. So the goal of this piece of work was really to raise awareness of the need for globally responsible practice in transport, so sustainable mobility specifically. So this had a thematic focus, and we were looking at mobility solutions, particularly as they pertain to the global majority. So really looking at solutions, discussions around the global south and lower middle income countries. So our approach to this work was to first synthesize the research. HVT over the last few years has garnered a whole range of research. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was to be able to consolidate some of that and the key learnings and the key experiences from the research papers, from the projects, from the tools, to really help us inform the development of a playbook and the design challenge that we were going to run. So we started off by doing a context review. The interactive tools that we wanted to create from this was the playbook that I just mentioned, but we also wanted an interactive challenge where students and professionals could really bring ideas to the fore and really focus on this as a topic. We wanted to use the design challenge to help build capabilities within students and professionals and really help integrate into the thinking sustainable mobility. So whether that be through the curricula or through professionals' work, really thinking about how transport is a critical enabler to all sorts of other societal issues and an integral part of infrastructure and cities and rural areas. And we also wanted to use it as an opportunity to connect the dots. So leveraging the Engineers Without Borders UK tools that I've just mentioned, and really using those as a catalyst for some of the actions and also to help build capabilities. So there were a range of things that we delivered as part of this programme. The initiation report, just outlining what our approach was much more clearly. We delivered one of the more generic reshaping engineering challenges, so the topic agnostic one. So really, and just galvanizing more interest in global responsible engineering more generally. We then conducted a context review, so synthesized the research from all the reports and information that we could find within HVT to provide an overview as what was being said about sustainable mobility, what had been found out about sustainable mobility, and thinking about how that could inform our ongoing work. So there is a context review, which we are going to make available soon. We also conducted a virtual online sandpit, so had a range of experts across a range of different disciplines globally really come and speak to us about what a playbook could entail, what types of opportunities and skill sets are in the space that we should be exploring as part of the development of the programme. We then created the first iteration of the playbook, and that was for testing purposes. So the playbook, I'll explain a little bit later, but it's really a guide to educators specifically around sustainable mobility and transport, and thinking about how you integrate that into your learning plans. We then did Reshaping Transport, the design challenge. I'll explain a little bit more about that and kind of followed up with our evaluation report on that. And we are now at the very final stages of the next iteration based on feedback from educators and learners on the next iteration of the playbook. So I'm just going to focus a little bit now on the design challenge. So a bit like Reshaping Engineering, this was an 8-week challenge, but really it was about fostering innovative thinking, solutions, having a practical exploration and a focus on enhancing sustainable mobility with an explicit framing around the needs of the global majority. So that took place in August and September this year. So it was an 8-week challenge. It was open to engineering educators, learners, and mobility professionals worldwide. It was also for those that didn't have extensive experience in sustainable mobility, but might have been doing something that was aligned with that, either from a community perspective or as a practitioner. So we really wanted to diversify the network that was approaching this. We wanted to make sure that there were sustainable mobility solutions that were being brought forward for the global majority. And we also wanted to ensure that the participants engaged in a learning journey through the global responsibility compass and the principles of global responsibility. So we had 228 participants on that, and we gave 3 opportunities for the way in which they could take part, because we wanted to test the ways in which that would work. So they could apply as individuals to put forward their solutions. They could apply as self-selecting teams, or they could apply to be matched. And so most of our other challenges we will match. And the reason why we offer the opportunity to match and usually lead with the opportunity to match is because we want to be able to create multidisciplined, global diverse teams across different professions. So whether students or professionals, and create that mix. But this time we thought we'd try the different elements and see how that worked. And we had 59% male participants, 41% female participants, which was actually a strong female representation, because generally within the engineering sector, it's about a 20%, I believe. And so actually we had quite a strong uptake. And we recognized that actually a lot of that was from women in the professional capacity. So that was some interesting finding. We had a really good, strong, diverse mix of ethnicities involved in the program. We had about a 79% uptake from the global majority. And so that was really heartening, because that was a key focus, that we could really engage people outside of the UK, as we're based in the UK, but have a global focus. The age distribution, the most were coming from the 18 to 35 age range, as they were students or early stage professionals predominantly. And you can see that in the breakdown of professions, students to professionals to educators. The other level of participation we had was a range of people that took part as judges or mentors. And so we were really able to draw in a really diverse and strong mix of participants that were willing to share their skills, support the participants by mentoring and looking at their concept notes and giving them advice on how they could develop those and how they could strengthen those. And then we also had a range of judges that were helping us assess against the criteria. So the journey, essentially from the beginning of August, we launched, we had a design brief that actually had quite a lot of information that supported an understanding of sustainable transport and mobility, case studies, a range of real life situations that we were asking students and professionals to consider. We had our matching process. For every week of the design challenge, we had guidance videos. So explaining how to undertake the next part of the challenge and offering some guidance on the competency compass and other elements like that. We had a crowdsolve platform where participants could post all their concept notes and their projects, etc. And then we had the mentoring elements of that. So really bringing in, leveraging expertise to support and understanding. We then had submissions of the final concept notes, which were shortlisted, and then the deliberation judges made their announcement, and then we had our celebration event. So that was quite a lot to pack into 8 weeks, and 6 weeks of that was the intensity of the design itself, and then the final couple of weeks for the deliberation and celebration events. So 36 projects were submitted, and I guess they can be loosely categorized as with these focus areas. So a number of them around electric and solar powered vehicles. We kind of enhanced the accessibility and really wanted projects to think about inclusion. So it was good to see a good range of projects really focused on improving transport for people with all sorts of diverse needs. Public transport enhancements. So how do you actually build the infrastructure differently, think about that differently, or enhance what's already there? And then sustainability and safety, and I suppose it's connectivity as well. So, looking for how do you connect different systems? How do you utilize new technologies like AI for traffic control? And how do you use natural resources more effectively? So those are kind of loosely the categorizations for the projects. So I'll send a link where you could actually look at the winners more. But the winning team, who also won the Africa Engineering Week award, were focused on revamping Nairobi's railways and really thinking about how you repair that critical infrastructure, how you maintain that. And they were quite visionary in their approach. So they were thinking about different elements of the railways and how that works. And then we had a green public transport system in Mumbai, and then an emergency vehicle pod, which was very unique in the way that it was looking at things. So a lot of these were very visionary. They had a short period of time to get to know each other if they were in match teams, to then come up with these concepts and develop these ideas. And so some of the practicalities of those ideas need more working out and need more thinking through. But what we really wanted to generate was some thought process around how do you actually build sustainable mobility and transport for the global majority with a globally responsible practice. So some of the motivations, essentially, for people taking part was a desire to make a difference, really interest in collaboration, a focus on regional impact, and an enthusiasm for problem solving. The majority of participants wanted to be matched. Self-selecting teams were more successful given the time frame because they already were familiar with each other. They didn't have to spend the time getting to know each other and understanding their working practice. And we also saw that young professionals remain keen to learn at early stages of their career, and there was a good take-up from professionals, mainly early stage. The learning outcomes, we can see that there has been a shift through the program in the self-assessment, the perception of learning outcomes. And these were done across the different criteria. So things like inclusion, people-centered practice, impact-driven solutions. So really looking at starting with a baseline, we actually had an improvement in learning practice. But of course, there's always areas for development as well. The time frame we know is a challenge, but we also are quite intentional about it being a short burst of activity to really just raise the awareness and get people thinking about that. And then also participants were talking about having mentor involvements from earlier, and so we want to consider that in future programs. And there was a little bit of a mismatch in the kind of judging expectations and the level of the concept notes that were provided because of the short time frame. So we need to work better on alignment with those. And so those are some of the things that we learned. I will soon be coming to an end. So that's reshaping transport. So the final piece of work that this is the only slide for that, is the playbook, which we are finalizing right now. So we really want the playbook to be a practical guide for educators and facilitators of vocational learning. So it provides a range of exercises that can either be plugged into a curricula, can form a module, or sessions can be pulled out and used in various different formats. And so what that does is really help educators to lift and plug and play, essentially. But we really wanted it to be an opportunity for educators to explore the diversity of transport and the complexity of transport. Look at how they could support learners to address the inequalities in their practice, and center the education on lived experience. So there are a lot of case studies in there that people can draw on that are global majority focused and that really lean into supporting development of solutions for the global majority. So version 1 has been tested with educators for feedback, and we're finalizing version 2. So I just wanted to leave this quote for the future, which is really just saying there is a lot to think about in terms of the challenges and the interconnectedness of that. And we can only really achieve success if we work together. And that is a perspective. I suppose the belief that we have that we need to work collectively and we need to drive change for more globally responsible practice. So that brings me to my end. So just to say on this slide, and then I'll stop sharing, I will be leaving Engineers Without Borders at the end of this year. So if you did want to talk about these programs some more and these collaborative opportunities, then please contact Tim Wilson. But if you'd like to talk to me about any of the other work that I do around Partnership Bureau and Equity and Access, or the Ghana Science and Tech Explorer Prize, or the Ghana Alliance, anything else, then you can contact me too. So thank you. I will stop sharing now.
That was brilliant, Constance. Thank you very much for that. I was going to continue to record the Q&A session if people were comfortable with that. But if you're not, please say, and I can stop it now. I don't see any concerns raised. Okay, oh, there's somebody in the chat. Just let me check. Okay, we'll carry on then. So if we can just open it up to any questions that anyone would like to ask.
John, can I start? Because I might have to run away.
Yeah, please do.
Right. Thank you very much. You rolled it out, Constance. You rolled it out beautifully. At the beginning, I feared. It sounded like you were dismissing us because you said you are going to talk about Engineers Without Borders, and your other beautiful efforts seem to be not relevant to us. But you changed all that when talking about Engineers Without Borders. You brought in interdisciplinarity and issues that move beyond the abiotic. Now, my question is, of all that you've discussed, what do you see as the single, the deepest challenge of interdisciplinarity in Africa?
You always have the hardest questions because they're big questions.
Because I'm a dinosaur.
Biggest challenge, interdiscipline. Everyone is working to a separate agenda. And I think even though there's a recognition, and this is just my perspective, even though there's a recognition that collaboration needs to happen and systemic change can only happen with cross-fertilization of ideas and practice, the systems that we have are set up to drive people towards their own agenda. And so as soon as you get a number of people in a room to discuss the multidisciplinary approach, it starts to become, well, who's responsible for that? And how do you share the resources for that? And I have my budgets lines for this particular thing, and I have to achieve this particular thing. And so I think the way in which there's a number of factors. The way in which we bring people together to discuss this is not resourced to do it collaboratively. We resource in silos, and therefore people tend to go away again and deliver in silos, even though they know that actually collaboratively it would be more effective. So I think if we can break down some of that structure to make more of the resource multidisciplinary, rather than just within a particular department or a particular faculty or a particular, we might get more of the collaboration, because then people can plan more effectively together and have the resource to take things forward together. I think the funding streams that are coming in that are asking for collaboration and multidisciplinary approaches are going some way towards that. But I think that siloed agenda, those siloed targets, really hamper us from working effectively together. And I don't think that's just Africa. I think it's a global issue. I think there are maybe less mechanisms for that collaboration that I'm seeing in my work, particularly across Africa, for instance, on Thursday, I'm bringing together a group of NGOs to really look at how we talk collectively about STEM education, as opposed to each individually doing our work and trying to promote STEM individually. There is more power in the collective, and I think we just need to do more of that as well.
Thank you, Fred. Any other questions? Surely.
Hello,
Tom.
Tom Bishop here. Yeah, I've got a question for Fred, or I'm interested in the question that Fred asked me at the start of this, talking about why when people are dying on the roads, is road safety not included in programs? I'm wondering which programs Fred is referring to, and what Amend and the road safety sector could do to advocate to get road safety included in those programs.
Okay, let me be clear. When you have people dying on the road, you would expect them not to forget your word, safety, in their thinking and in their programs, in whatever they do. So how come that you make a deliberate effort to help people not to forget? And yet it would seem, if you see people dying, those people, those human ecosystems, surely must take road safety seriously and all the way, all the time.
Okay,
So why do you think they don't?
I think I understand. I think what you're saying is that individuals do not take their own safety seriously. And I think that the road safety sector's response to that would be that, yes, individuals have a role to play in keeping themselves safe, but it's all part of a bigger system. We talk about the safe systems approach to road safety. It's not only the individuals, but also the people who design the roads, also the people who enforce the laws, also the people who provide the emergency response. As I mentioned at the start, the flagship area of work that we're involved in is infrastructure. And from an infrastructure perspective, we say that roads should be designed recognizing that people are going to make mistakes, and trying to minimize the impact of those mistakes. Yes, somebody's going to drive too fast, but it shouldn't be the child who's crossing the road in front of that driver who pays the price. There should be, design impacts to reduce the speed so that that driver cannot make a mistake that is going to have such a catastrophic impact for the child that gets hit. So yes, individuals have a role to play, but so do governments, development banks, and everybody involved in the urban and transport system.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? No?